All right, generic, can you hear me? Let me know when you can hear me. I'm trying not to talk too loud. Also, I will try to talk as slowly as possible because I have a tendency to talk fast and eat words. So, also keep in mind there will be some delay in between what I say and you actually see it, and then you post it on chat. So I might not be able to see your questions right away, but I will answer them as soon as I check them out. So basically, this is the menu for RPG Maker. I will teach you the very basics and where to go from there. So you want to make an anti game. Obviously, to make an anti game, you're going to need two things: the anti and the game. So the first thing you need to decide is how you are going to supply the anti. When we decided to make our game, we had a team, we had someone to draw. At the time, Muku was still learning how to draw, and we were just a bunch of friends that thought we could make good games. I had a lot of experience in computers. I At the time when I started, I had something like 20 years of experience, and by the time Muku started, I don't remember how many years he had of drawing experience, but it wasn't that many. It was like one or two. He was getting some drawing lessons from his girlfriend. And Isaac was on his third year of computer engineering in the university. So we had a really good basic, a really good base to actually work on a game. And obviously, you are going to need to decide how you're going to supply or create the anti. Now, there's obviously countless ways you can actually make your own porn in real life and then post the pictures in the game. Um, but even though there's countless options for you to pick how you are going to deliver the anti, the most common ones are either drawn art or 3D art. Those are usually the go-to. Now, obviously, the drawn art, you will have to either know how to draw yourself, or you will have to hire someone to draw for you. Um, Depending on how good you are at working, uh, if you get someone behind your project, you can offer them like a percentage of the profit. You can share your idea with them and try to go from there, or you might check someone on. There's a bunch of forums with classifieds where people are offering their services, or you might even try to approach a known mangaka or someone that draws hentai, and you offer them a fee. Some people are available, some people are not. Um, for Evan Studios, which is our team, we have a house team and we have someone that we are outsourcing to. I'd love to hire Scarlett Ann at full time, but she rather work on she'd rather work on what's it called, when you pay someone to make a job for you. I don't remember the the word right now. Such a basic word, but basically, yeah, she rather provide art in a sort of like charging a fee for making a drawing for you or whatever it is. While the team on Evan Studios West, sorry, Evan Studios East is set on actually a paycheck. They actually make a certain amount every month, regardless of how much work they put out. So it really is. It really depends on um, how you hire those people. Now, there is a cheaper version of that, which is actually making the art, and you don't have to be really good at drawing. You just need to learn how to work with programs that create 3D art. The most common one nowadays being DAS 3D. Um, so DAS 3D, I cannot teach you how to use it because we do not use it, but I can tell you that there are countless tutorials about it on the internet. I have a bunch of friends that learn from just checking out forums, F95. There's a bunch of assets that you can use from there, and you can buy assets directly from the DS3D website. But there's a lot of free assets that you can get online, and there's a lot of people that just rip off a lot of assets. There's a lot of assets pirated that you can find online. So this is probably going to be like a matter of etiquette for you if you want to buy your own stuff, or if you want to actually just pirate it. I'm gonna leave that up to you, to your decision. Um, Especially at starting off, not a lot of people like to put out a lot of money out of their pocket before they start making money, and that's understandable. We are already an established company. We pay for every program that we have, from RPG makers to Photoshops to everything. We pay for everything. We pay for a monthly fee for Photoshop, and for instance, we are creating Journey Abroad, and we are outsourcing the art to Scarlet, which is doing commissions for us. That's the word that I can remember before. The word is commissions. So we are doing commissions with Scarlet, and we're already something like $6,000 down the drain in the sense that we haven't made any money from Journey Abroad yet, and we are already $6,000 invested in the game. So not a lot of people have money to invest in a game before they start making money, especially up to like $6,000. Obviously, a lot of people have a lot of pocket money or startup money that they can spend, but it's more common than not to not have that type of money. So you have to decide if you want to commission the art from a 2D artist, and there's plenty, like I said, there's plenty of classifieds out there on the internet where you can just hire someone to work for you. You just look for someone that you like their art. You look for their you check what their fees are, and yeah, and you can hire them on a commission basis. Uh, and of course, the very sought out alternative that a lot of people use nowadays is just using Dash 3D and going to forums like F95 to download the assets and just do the stuff themselves. Um, Once you have the art, so to speak, then it comes the part of making an entire game, which pretty much is just grabbing the anti, putting it on a game. That's where all this goes. So the first thing that I can suggest, that I'm definitely going to suggest, is before you do anything on RPG Maker, right? This is a VXAs, but you can use whatever it is. You can use MV, you can use MZ. Unite is coming out in 2023. I think it's about to come out, so you can wait for that. And VXAs is just dated. I will never suggest you to use VXAs. It will probably require a lot of investment to make it work, and we are actually one. I think we are the first team that is actually going to get the game to work in higher resolutions without having a lot of legal issues, which is what's going to come out on the shoulder patch. We had to invest a lot of time and money to make RPG Maker VXAs workable with. What I suggest that you do is either start making your game on MV or MZ. There's already plenty of assets on it, or wait for Unite. The biggest difference in those games, the biggest difference from those platforms, initially, is obviously going to be the coding language that those programs allow. So for RPG Maker VXAs and everything before it, they were using Ruby on Rails. It's pretty much the coding language was called Ruby. From RPG Maker MV and RPG Maker MZ, what they use for creating code is JavaScript. So if you have knowledge of JavaScript and you want to personalize your game, personalize your menus, and you don't want to find free stuff online, or you don't want to outsource, you need to know JavaScript. Of course, there's also classified for people doing snippets of code, and people that will do snippets for your menus, and they will do all the coding necessary. You just pay them, and obviously the prices are can differ, anything from like $10 for a snippet that takes like two hours to make, to someone that can charge you like $100 or $500. Obviously, I'm exaggerating money, but this is going to be some sort of supply and demand type of classifieds. So some people will charge you like $20 for 2 hours of coding or 3 hours of coding or completely coding a menu for you. And some people will charge you whatever they want. They can charge you $500 for that amount of time. So it's a commission. So that's the second thing that you're gonna have to into account is that if you want to personalize your game, either you either you deal with having to deal with free stuff, and there's a lot of it online to be honest, or you are going to have to commission it as well. Now, this is the test server. Probably there's not a lot of scripts here. Yeah, okay. So basically, when if you look to the left here, oh no, I see where the problem is. Um, it's only showing this screen. Wait, so if I open this screen, it's also not going to show? No, okay. So I need to change what the window is capturing, else you won't be able to see display capture. Let me try and do this. Okay, that was a little bit of an issue. Let me do this. There we go. Because if I use RPG Maker Capture, none of the images actually show up. So if you go here to the script editor, you go here to check the scripts for Fleeting Iris. All of these, starting here, all of these, all the way here, are severely edited or completely personalized. For instance, this one is ours. It's our oh yeah, to your left. I'm looking to the right because I have a wide screen. All of this code is unique to our game. This script was made uniquely for our game. This was also made uniquely for our game. Then there's a lot of people that have their own stuff. Like all of these in this section right here, all of these are unique to our game. Like all of these, we have made to personalize Fleeting Iris. There's a lot of code behind the stuff that people see, and yeah, in order for the game to work bug free most of the time, and for people to see the menus that they see, the fast travel menu that they see, the status menus that we have, some of which that we've had and removed from the game. All of these requires personalizing. All of these requires to make your personal scripts like this. Like all of this was made just for our game. And if you want to personalize your game, you'll have to do the same. But if you look at these, for instance, actually like this was taken from the internet. We edited a little bit. Actually, this one we might have edited a lot, but we edited a little bit, and a lot of snippets. This is literally code. This is not snippets. Snippets is more like JavaScript, but a lot of snippets for JavaScript are available online. You can get them on the official and unofficial websites for RPG Maker. There's a lot of code there. So if I go here, for instance, let me look RPG Maker forums. If I just type RPG Maker forums on Google, I'm going to get this window. And this is the RPG Maker forums on Google. And in the forums you have something like, this one has like 800 threads. If you come down here to like support or RPG Maker tutorials, you have hundreds and hundreds of tutorials. This one has 800 threads. If you look for RPG Maker JavaScript plugins, for instance, there's literally 26.6k threads. So there's a chance that if you come to, for instance, this is JavaScript plugin releases, and this is JavaScript plugin releases for MZ. So let's say MZ, which because it's more recent, and you literally have 31 pages of scripts that people just made for everyone to use. You just have to check what are their conditions. Usually it's just free to use, but for instance, this one is like an enemy class with basically it allows you to customize a lot of stuff about your enemies. And then then you have terms of use. Usually this is what you need to pay attention to. A lot of stuff that you do on the internet, that you find on the internet, such as images, music, you need to check your terms of use. Usually it starts with most of the times you're going to get someone to ask you to credit them on your game. Like if you use this script, please credit me in your game. So that's why you have a long list of credits in most RPG Maker games, and then um, you just come to forums like this, and you're able to, if you look long and hard, you're probably going to find most of the stuff that you need to edit your game to your to your liking. So another thing that you're going to see is that this is kind of like the back office of the game. So most of the code, I don't know if you're aware of it, but most of this code is just like the back office. This is what happens behind the scenes on the games. But then you're going to require some sort of actual HUD layout or stuff like that. So menus like this, again, this is going to be something that you can either this is going to be something that you can either outsource, or this is going to be something that you can either outsource, or it's going to be something that you can make yourself. Now, for this menu, I did it myself on Photoshop. I drew the menu on paper first, then I took it on Photoshop. I started, playing around with it, and then once I had the menu drawn and I had an idea of how I wanted the menu to look, I talked to my scripter and I said, "Listen, I want this script to look like this. I want this to light up when the mouse is over." And then once you have this, you can take it to the scripter, and it will make it work, basically. So this is another thing that you have to outsource or do it yourself. Honestly, if you're going to do stuff like this, I honestly suggest that you use Photoshop for two reasons. First, it's a very complete program, and second, there's millions or billions of tutorials on how to use Photoshop on the internet. There's many useful links for it on YouTube, and there's a lot of stuff that is already made on the internet that you can get for free. You can get like buttons for free, and then you just have to arrange it. So this is another thing that you need to use. You need to figure out how to do the menus. Obviously, some of those scripts have simpler, less hard to make menus, but if you want to make it, this is something else to have into account. So once you look at it, making games requires a lot of people to be doing stuff, or it requires people with a very diverse set of skills. Luckily for Fleeting Hours, our game is extremely customized, and the reason for that is because I have so much knowledge in computers. I do a lot of things. From I do the mapping for our game, I do the dialogues for our game, I do I drew most of the menus for our game with my Photoshop knowledge. I did a lot of assets creation for the tile sets, which is basically these pictures that you see in the game. Then you can interact with in the game. All of this. If you use the RPG Maker basic ones, which come with the engine, your game is going to look extremely generic. But if you want to use more personalized tile sets, you can either find them for free on the internet, you can make them yourself, or you can buy some of the more premium ones, some of the best looking ones on the internet are going to require you to buy them. Of course, you can take the cheap pirate route, but if you get caught, obviously it's gonna be an issue. So again, I'm gonna leave that up to your I'm gonna leave that up to your preference on what to do. Personally, in Evan Studios, we purchase everything that we can, or we get the free stuff that you have to credit the authors for. And lately, what we have done is literally create our own assets. So for the Shota game, which sadly you cannot see here, I think. No, this is an old test server for Fleeting Hours. So what we did for Fleeting Hours was, for the Shota patch, is that we created our own assets. We are thankfully at a point where we are just able to create our own assets. So basically there's a lot of people that you have to put together, or there's a lot of stuff that you have to do on your own. I will teach you how to work with the basics of RPG Maker, and then you'll be able to go from there. Uh, but before you do any of this, before you make any of these decisions, the two most important things is you need to figure out how you're going to find your anti art. That's number one. You will have to decide if you're going to draw it or if you're going to create it on the ads or something like that. So once you have the anti, you have to put it in the game. Now, the first and most important thing is you need to do a lot of. There's a lot of work that has to be done before you actually start working on the game. Um, for me, when I wrote Fleeting Iris, I already had the whole game written before I actually started making like the first line of code in the game. Before I even wrote the first line of code in the game, I already had the whole game written, and this is extremely important because if you make changes on the fly, you will realize that it the line of code is going to look like spaghetti code, right? So when you start writing, you need to know exactly what you're going to write. Use a test server. Make sure that you like everything before you move it to the main server. Um, Make several copies. I don't think I need to tell you this, but make several copies before you do anything. Uh, and make sure you write a massive backstory. Like I can tell you that just for instance, like some of the stuff that I have in game. This is just ideas in writing that I have for our games. Like all of this, if you come here, like all of this is notes. You need a lot of this. This is nothing. This is almost nothing. You need a lot of this. You need a lot of these notes. You need a lot of these notes. You need all of this before you even start working on the game. You need to do stuff like this, right? Lots of back office, and this is just an idea. Um, you need to write your game. You need to write your characters. You need to write how your characters interact with each other. If you're going to make entire scenes, you need to write which entire scene is going to happen and why. And something that I always tell people when they're making entire games is that you need to make it so that each entire scene counts. It's kind of like art. It's kind of like any sort of art, really. Like if you're an artist, you're not going to put out a painting just for the sake of putting out a painting. If you're a book author, if you start writing a lot of like shit, people are going to get bored of your book and move on. Like every line that you write in a book, every paragraph that you write in a book, it has to improve the story in some sort of way. It's like a musician. Like if you're a rapper, you want to make sure that every line that you say is a bar. You not just want to put stuff on the song just because it rhymes. So when making an entire game, make sure you don't just add like 30 male characters just because you're watching a TV show and you're like, oh man, I have an idea, and you just add a character out of nowhere, and the scene that is completely disconnected from the rest of the game, and it's just there for the sake of being there. Those scenes start adding up, and you start having a lot of characters, and you start getting lost to the point where people don't even remember which characters have been in the game. Who are they? How are they related to the character in which way? People are gonna get lost about that. There's a lot of games. There's countless games that I played that after 30 minutes into the game, I already met like 50 characters. Like 30 dudes have jumped on the main character's back, and you're like, okay, so basically she's just having sex with everyone. She's a slut, and they're like, oh no, this is a corruption game. How is this a corruption game, bro? She had sex with like 30 guys in 10 minutes. That's not a corruption game. She's a slut. So I will probably tell you that in the entire games, more is better. Obviously, Fleeting Iris is a terrible example because I tried to tell like 30 different stories in one game, but that was the point of the game. We were set to make the biggest entire game ever, where all the male characters in the game mostly will try to jump on your back. Like everyone with a little bit of bravado will try to jump on the main character's back, and it's probably very similar to what happens in real life as a beautiful woman, right? If you're an extremely beautiful woman in real life and you are in a place where most men are confident, they will approach you. They will try to engage uh, uh, um, in sexual discussions with you. And if you're a promiscuous woman, uh, you're going to be able to get a body count of hundreds in a very short amount of time. That's the reality. If you're a beautiful woman, you get sex thrown at you uh, on a regular basis, mostly by obviously confident men. There's a lot of men that fantasize, but they are never able to approach a woman. But anyone that has the guts to approach a woman, and that's the thing with fleeting hours. For most games, though, I always tell people that less is more. You want to make sure that uh, all the scenes are there for a reason, because something that completely throws me off in entire games is that the setting for the scene is really not that good. You want to make sure that the backstory, what led to enticing, the context, usually that is the hardest part of an entire game. I'm sure people like those generic main character rapes a bunch of NPCs that have no personality games. Obviously, there's people for everything, but in my personal opinion, you want to make sure that the character is related to any of those characters some way. Don't just add the scene just because, oh, she's having sex in the park. Why is she having sex in the park? Why is that guy in the park? What type of fetish does this cover? You know, usually you want to make sure that each scene that you add in the game, it adds a lot. It tells a story, because usually the context is the best part of anti for most people. And this is based on my personal opinion. Obviously, people will have their anecdotal experiences, but in my personal experience, people really love the context. That's why people in the CG rooms like, oh, can you show the map or what they were talking about before it happened and whatnot. And we tried to do that initially on Fleeting Aries, but eventually we stopped doing it because Isaac started doing the CG room. But for the remaster, I'm going to make sure that people get the context. But the scenes themselves, like all of them have like a backstory. For instance, right now I'm in the massage parlor. For this scene, you get an idea of how much the drug in the that happens in the world of Alessi Chronicles. You figure out how deeply ingrained it is in the culture of this city. So you realize that a lot of these females are oh, this is the old massage parlor. It's not even the new one. This map has been updated, but um, you realize that they are putting some of that drug in a sort of like a cloud. They're putting it in the air. I don't know the English word. Uh, Intervene. I don't remember the word in English. I don't know if I even know the word, but basically they're putting the drug, they are diluting the drug in the air. So if you breathe it, you start getting aroused. So basically this scene explains how deeply ingrained in the culture of Evan City the drug is, right? So that's really something that I'm going to suggest, is that when you write a game, you write a beginning and you write an end. Don't just write aimlessly. Fleeting Hours is probably unnecessarily long. We were just trying to. I don't even know what we were trying to do, man. We are not an example for anyone. But most games, you want to write the beginning and you want to write an end. And you want to write the entire scenes. Now, it's easier to adapt on the fly that doing everything on like on a freestyle. Because if you start doing stuff like, I don't even write the game, I just write the scenes that are hot. I'm just going to have this female character have sex with a lot of people for no reason. People are probably going to lose interest in the game fast, or not. There's a bunch of games that I like that at some point I feel like, oh man, this game has definitely way too many characters. Uh, I've been also trying to give a lot of tips to the creator of a game called Laura. Sorry, let me. It's Starke. It's what's the name of the game? Sorry, it's Laura's Lustful Adventures or something like that. It's an NTR game. And I really like his game. I really like his style, but I was telling him, hey man, be careful because at this point you're adding so many characters to the game. You don't even know who's who and why are in the game for. There, it's just that you're just adding scenes where the characters have sex with the main character, and there's really no backstory to it. And it was like, yo, I was getting worried that I was doing that. I'm so happy that you said that to me because I was getting like really self conscious. I was afraid that I was doing that, and now you telling me that I'm doing it is going to tell me, not to do it. So it's really up to you because then you also have game like Anna's Exciting Affection or whatever it's called, and you have games like Manila Shaw where the character just has sex with a lot of characters for no reason. It's like the authors go online and check like Ian Tai or something like that. They see a trope that they like and they add that trope to the game to their game. There's a scene on Lily of the Valley, the scene where the couples go to a massage parlor, and basically the chick has sex with the guy, and basically they have sex with the masseuses with the masseurs there, and basically that's literally the trope. Like some of the dialogue and everything is literally the trope of a manga that I've read. So there's basically some authors that just all add scenes to the game just because, oh, I saw that this is sex and whatever, and they add the scene to the game that is completely disconnected from the rest of the game. Now you can occasionally do that, but you don't want to make your game look like there's no story being told. At some point, it's just, oh, she's just having sex with everyone. There's no story here. Um, Happy New Year, Ganga. I hope you have a good. I hope you have a great day as well, bro, and I hope you have a great year. Sorry, I was one of our supporters in chat. Um, yeah. So basically, yes, tropes need more meat to the scenes is exactly what I think. Again, doesn't mean that you can add one scene here or there where there's no connection to the rest of the story, but you don't want your whole game to be like that. Let me give you an example about Laura's Listful Adventures or whatever. So he made a scene that actually improved the plot, made the plot progress, which is the daughter of the main character goes to school, and basically she's getting hit on by a guy. Her brother tries to protect her, and meanwhile, behind the back, the girlfriend of the brother is having sex with her ex boyfriend, which she admits to still be in love with. So that part actually improves the plot because there's actually story being told. Meanwhile, there's a couple scenes in the game, like there's one scene where Laura is dressed in a Brazilian outfit, which is very similar to an entire plot that I've read many years ago, and they get visited. Obviously, I need to say this for context, but the developer of the game is Brazilian, and there's an entire manga there I read like years ago, like over a decade ago, called Tudo Dash, which is like everything 10. I don't understand why the name is that, but doesn't matter. And basically, there's this female character. She's dressed in kind of like a Brazilian jersey and whatnot, and they get visited by like this German couple that you have never seen before. And basically, the German chick tries to hit on her husband. She gets angry, so she has sex with the German guy. That's it. You had never seen those characters before, and chances are you will never see those characters again. I think they were just added for the sake of uh, the fact that we were going through the World Cup at the time, the football World Cup at the time. So it was kind of like uh, um, it was kind of like the culture at the time, like last month or whatever. So he made that scene, and then you have a scene. Again, the scene is extremely hot. I like the scene a lot, but basically, uh, it's Christmas Day, and basically a hobo barges into their house. She hears noise, and when she gets to the living room, instead of instantly assuming, "Oh my God, there's a stranger in my living room. We're being robbed," she's like, "Oh, it's Santa." So basically, she has like a childhood trauma with Santa. Like, "Oh, no one thinks you're real, but I love you so much, Santa." And she ends up having sex with a hobo, thinking he's Santa. Again, kind of funny. Sex with a hobo. It's all cool, but it doesn't push the progress. That doesn't push the plot, right? Uh, And those scenes, so basically in like four entire scenes that he had indeed to the game, but this guy is very hard worker. He did like four scenes in 2 months, uh maybe less than 2 months, um during the holiday season, right? This guy is a hard worker. But in four scenes that he added to the game, I think two of them completely like new characters, didn't push the plot whatsoever. So it's important if you do that every patch. By the time you have 10 patches, you have you have something like 20 characters that only showed up once, had sex with the main character and left. At this point, it feels like your character is just a slut and there's a complete disconnect on your story. It's like, okay, is your story not good enough to the point where you're just adding stuff to the game? You're just adding tropes to the game for the sake of, oh, I think this is odd, let's add it to the game. And that's how games like Anna's Exciting Infection and Lily of the Valley seem to be going off for years to come without ever reaching anywhere. Like, I'm still trying to figure out, after like 3 or 4 years or whatever that Anna's Exciting Infection has been out for, I'm still trying to figure out what happened when she got hit by a car in like the first 15 minutes. There's characters that you meet once in the game, and the game hints that you're going to meet the character again later on, and it's been years, real life years, where you haven't seen the character again. So I strongly discourage to do that type of like spaghetti writing. Make sure you have a good story. Write your story. Write your entire scenes in paper. Like, this character meets this character for this reason. This is what makes them engage into the sex scenes. For instance, for Bloodlust, what I wrote was, I wrote the story, what I wanted the characters to go through, and then I wrote who were the antagonists, how will they be able to relate to interact with the characters, what will cause them to have power to interact with the characters, how will the characters be able to respond, what will lead to the enticings, and the order of the enticings. Now, that doesn't mean that eventually I cannot have a great idea and I cannot adjust on the fly. But like I said, it's better to adjust to something that you already have than write completely out of nowhere. You're going to get lost really fast. At some point, you won't even remember what you already wrote in the game. That's the reality. So make sure you do a lot of homework. You write a lot before you start making the game. It might seem one of those things that people tell you and it's like, oh no, I have the idea in my head, I know what I'm doing. Trust me, write it down. Write all of it down. Make sure you have the base of the game. Do what I do. I always carry like a little notepad with me. Just carry a little notepad like I do, and every time I have a really good idea, I just write it down. You can do the same on your cell phone, for instance. But write down all the great ideas that you have. Oh, I had a great idea for a scene. Oh, I had a great idea for a few lines of dialogue. Write it all down. Don't assume that, oh, later on I'll remember or eventually I'll think of it. Just write everything down. Make sure you have a lot of documentation before you go into your game, and make sure you have the right team so that you can, once you start dishing out anti-scenes, once you start writing out the game, you don't have a break on the releases, else you're going to start getting patrons, and by the time you start getting like some sort of momentum, you're going to break the momentum. So how do you do that? Do what we did with Scarlet Ann. We haven't released anything yet because we are trying to figure out how long it takes us to deliver a certain amount of work. And we have already realized that it depends. There's months where we can get like 4 scenes in 1 month, and there's months where we can get like 1 scene or no scenes in 1 month. So basically, if you start outsourcing, if you start paying commissions to someone to work with your art, don't just get into making a game and just assume that that person will be able to always work with you at that pace and whatnot. First, have them create some body of work. Have them create the bus for your game. Have them create a couple scenes, and make sure you have a nice body of work that you've learned to work with that person, and only then start working on your game. Else, what's going to happen is the same thing that happened to a lot of developers, which is they start working on their games, and then eventually they are like, oh, I need to hire a new artist. Oh, I need to seize creation of the I need to seize the developing of this project because my CG artist quit. So make sure you have a team that will stick with you for the duration of the game, which I suggest that at most you make it like 1 or 2 year stops and then just wrap it up. Just write down the game and assess how much work you can do in a certain amount of time. Plan for a maximum of 2 years. Wrap it up. Just write your story. Make sure you tell the parts that you need to tell, and then wrap it up. And then if you want, work on a sequel. Don't make an 8 year game because you might not have an 8 year team. We had it because I knew these people before we started working on the game, and we already had an excellent relationship before we started working on Fleeting Iris. I have known Isaac for decades before he started working on Fleeting Iris, and I already knew Muku from the forums for like a few years. You want to make sure that your team will stick with you, you know? Exactly. So if you're already writing a book, you know exactly what I'm talking about because the process is the same. If you have like, oh, I want this topic that I want to debate in the book, or I want to write in the book, or I have this idea that I want to write in the book, and you don't instantly write, you don't just sit down and start writing. Some people are able to do that, but usually what you do is you create a lot of notes, and then you grab those notes, you put those notes together, and you start developing on the notes that you wrote before, right? Sometimes you just write a line, and that line just might not say something to nobody else, but to you, it triggers some memories. To you, you look at a line that you wrote on the notebook, and you're like, oh, right, that thing that I saw the other day, and you're able to write paragraphs and paragraphs just based on that single line that you wrote. So the process of making a game is the same process as of making a book. So when you start making a game, make sure you already have an idea for a game. Imagine that I'm a Hollywood, probably Hollywood was a terrible example, but imagine that I'm a AAA game producer, and I have a meeting with you, and you say that you are, I don't remember what you guys call it there. In Portugal, we call guionista, which is someone that writes the plot for the games. But imagine that you have an idea for a game, and you have a meeting with me, and I tell you, okay, pitch me the idea for your game. You have to be able to pitch me the whole idea. Like, who's this character? Why should people care? Why should people relate? How is your game better and different from anything else that is on the market? Like, why will people stop playing the hundreds and thousands of other games out there to play your game? Why is your character better looking than that game? Why is your character relatable? Why will people want to play that game? What's the story? What's the beginning? What's the end? Who does she have sex with? Why does she have sex with those people? And until you have all of that written down, do not even start working on the game. You might want to practice on RPG Maker to make sure that you understand like how the game works and whatnot. But before you write down the groundwork and you do the groundwork for your game, don't even start developing per se. Don't do it. Your first projects are like pancakes. The first ones are throwaways. So grab your game, test your stuff, whatever. Once you have all that, once you have all the anti, once you realize which menus you want to make in the game, once you realize you already have a good scripter, or you already grabbed the scripts online, you found a lot of songs, there's a lot of free royalty-free songs online, there's a bunch of like cool producers on YouTube, there's a bunch of like on the RPG Maker forums and other places, there's some Japanese ones that you can find, and there's a few websites that do amazing royalty-free songs, and they sell them in packs. They have like thousands and thousands of songs, and it's like you can pick 10 of them, and if you buy 10, you pay something like $60, and if you buy like 25, you pay something like $100, so you can get like 25 original songs, and you get them all for like $100. There's websites that do that, or you can do a basic thing and try to do just like a throwaway game, and you can use everything RPG Maker generic. You can use RPG Maker generic sound effects. You can use RPG Maker generic background music. You can use RPG Maker's generic tile sets, and you're going to get a game that instead of looking like that's going to look like this, pretty much like generic RPG Maker assets. You're not going to get something that looks like this or this. You're going to get something that looks extremely generic. And I'm sad that I don't have some one, but yeah, you're not going to get something that looks nice. You're going to get something that looks very generic. Yeah, all of this, almost none of this, actually, really none of this is RPG Maker basic. I think these toilets maybe and this wall, I guess. But almost none of this is RPG Maker generic, to be honest. To keep it 100 with you, like none of this is RPG Maker generic. Especially because RPG Maker is was mostly made to make epic games. Like imagine Middle Ages adventure games like Final Fantasy, like the whole Final Fantasy VI and the whole Chrono Trigger. They are not meant to be like modern games, right? Yeah, you don't want to make a plan for 8 year game because a lot of bad things can happen in 8 years. Like realistically, imagine that you have a team with like 5 people. Imagine someone dies. You know, if you make something like a small project, your team will only have to feel like, okay, we have to work for a year. This is what the project is. It's a year. So you plan out, you make a project, you release whatever you can in 1 year. Did you like it? Keep going or write a sequel. Okay, where can we go from there? My patrons are still invested in the characters. My patrons are still invested in the stories. There's a lot of other odd scenes that I feel like I could create and they will be really cool. Write some more. Write a sequel. But don't make a plan for an 8 year game. Let me tell you how bad an idea for an 8 year game is. I think our game is the only successful entire game that lasted 8 years. The only. There's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of games. We have the biggest game ever. Most teams quit after a year or two. If you have 3 people, if you have something that does code, someone that draws and whatever, imagine that the guy that draws is not making enough money, for his ambition in life or whatever. And at some point he's like, hey man, I'm currently invested in another job that I have. I really want to, I got a girlfriend, she doesn't like me to draw whatever many reasons that can happen. And that guy quits on you. And then halfway through the process you're going to switch the entire artist. That's fucked up. So don't make a big game. Start with something small. Start with a game with like 10 entire scenes. Imagine that you're making a small manga. Your first game, don't put too much I'm not gonna say too much thought, but don't put too much hope on it. Just grab a quick game, try to do something, even if like try to do it a free game. Just make a game, try to learn the engine, and then make something, put it out, and see what people think of it. And then if people like it and whatnot, you can then move on to getting more expensive tile sets, more expensive songs, more expensive artists, whatever it is, and then start on a more ambitious project. But honestly, I'm going to tell you to start low, start on the bottom, because before I started working on this, I had already worked in many other games, not in RPG Maker, but I had already worked in many other games, and before I made my own RPG Maker game, I had already made, I don't know, hundreds of edits for other games. I had already finished a full translation for 2 games from Japanese to English. I added some fan-made scenes to those games. So when I started working on RPG Maker on my own game, I already had a lot of experience on it. But RPG Maker is a rather straightforward game. So you have a character. You start by creating your player, and then you create events, and your character is going to engage with those events in many different ways. The most important thing that you have in the game is how does the character progress in some whatever scenes? Every time you make like an event, let's say that you make someone that is like a character, right? And this is going to be the first page of the event, and then let's make this as a second page, and let's make this third page and whatever. First of all, you need to realize the higher, the lower the page in the event page is. I might be getting this wrong, but you need to understand that this is a thing. The lower the page is, for instance, if the conditions to run the page 1 and the conditions to run the page 2 both are met, the character will the game will always run the lowest number one. So if you have like 20 pages and all of the conditions are met, the game will try to run page 1. So let's say that I have this character over here. For you to interact with the character, this you have some. Obviously, this is something that you can find online easily on RPG Maker tutorials, but you have to put the same as characters. Else, if you put below characters, you can actually walk on top of it, and you have to like press the action button when you are on top of the event. If you have both characters, you are not able to interact with it, and if you have the same as characters, you will actually you won't be able to clip through the character. You will get like next to it, and if you press action button, the character will turn to you and you will start the event. But this is if the trigger is action button. You can have player touch, which is literally getting next to it or getting on top of it. You have like auto run, which is as soon as you enter the map, this is going to run, and this is how most of the events happen. And then you have a list of what happens, like the dialogue that is said, blah blah blah. And while you're writing the game, what creates progress usually is conditions. Conditions is the thing that matters the most in game. The way you make conditions in this game, it's extremely easy. The most important things there are in the game is switches and there's variables. Initially, obviously, this might seem harder than it seems, but let's say something like this. Let's say that in page number 1, you interact with Melvin. This is the first day. You interact with Melvin, blah blah blah. You have a whole line of dialogue. Let's say that they talk, right? Blah blah blah. They talk, and she gets hired, right? After she gets hired, let's create a switch. Let's create a variable. Sorry, let's create a variable. Wait, shouldn't this be? Okay, control variables, and let's grab a. Okay, basically I have a lot of variables. I'm gonna teach you something in a second. But let's create the variable. Let's imagine this is variable 1, and let's say route 1 progress, right? And let's add 1. So by if you started all the variables start at 0, unless you change them in the game. All the variables start at 0. All the switches start off. I'm gonna tell you the difference between the switches and the variables. Let's say that when she talks here with him, they talk, she gets hired, blah blah blah. This is basically just dialogue boxes. So if I interact with it right now, all you're gonna see is like they talk. I press enter, you're gonna see she gets hired. But you know, when you create tests, you're going to create like Melvin. How are you doing, dear? Right? And the whole dialogue goes through, blah blah blah, and then you get to the end, you're gonna get like the variable, you're gonna add like 1. So for the next event page, you're going to grab variable is, you grab the variable here and you say that it's 1. Right? So if the variable is 1 or above, it's no longer going to read from here. It's going to read from this page because this one is set at 0. Let's say that this is set at 0. But remember that they all start at 0. So it's going to read this one. If you switch the variable to 1 at the end of the dialogue or at the end of the event day, you can make it a condition for this to run 1 or above. Let's say that, okay, second day, he drops it. This is what happened in the second day. What do? We change the variables again, and we have and we add like a 1. Add 1. Now, if we create another page, the variable needs to be 2 or above. So if the variable is 2 or above, you got 1 point here, you got 1 point here. This one is gonna run. This line of content is gonna run. And that's basically how variables work. But this works for many things. Okay? Let's say that you wanna know how many times the character had sex with someone. Let's say that after let's say she has intercourse with guy 1. You can create a variable, right? And you want to say, you want to grab this, and you want to say guy 1 intercourse. Just something that you can remember, and you can add 1. Or let's say that they had like intercourse 3 times in one night. You can go add 3. And then if somehow you make like something like check the how many times she had whatever, you can go I had intercourse with guy 1, and then if you see here, oh, this one doesn't show, but basically there's code that you can use like slash var, I think like that one was like 629 or whatever it was, and then if you see the character talk, she will tell you the number that is there. So that's basically how variables work. Variables is when you want to keep track of something that is happening and is going to change multiple times. You want to add like a number of times. Like it's really that easy. If you have sex with this character like 20 times, every time you have sex with the character, you need to add a 1. So when you go into the menu, how many times did she have like anal sex? So you need to add it manually. Like, oh, she had anal sex once. Let's change the variable for anal sex. So just to give you an idea of some of the variables that we have. Actually, I can do that here. Let me give you an example. So, oh, there we go. So this is the first, the main stats of the game. Morality, lust, you want to keep track of the lust. Charm, Robert's trust, whatever. We also have the date. Main story flow is the thing that I showed you as an example here. Main story flow, every time she has like a dialogue that pushes the main story forward, we add a 1. This is for the pub mini game. And then we have the progress for each route. Melvin's bar progress, 24/7 progress, hospital progress. So every time she goes there and she has a day, let's say she has a day at the hospital, a lot of stuff happens, all the events happen. At the end of the day, you make sure that you add a variable and you say control variables hospital progress +1. So the next time she goes there, you create another tab. This is going to be a different day, and you make sure that the condition to run that tab is that the hospital progress is that day or above, or that progress or above, right? And that's how you make sure that every time you go there and you interact with the same character, the character has a different dialogue every time you interact with it. It's really simple, right? Obviously, you can use variables to do a lot of other stuff, like record map ID, map X, and whatever. But this is more experienced stuff. You want to check online a guide on how to do this. But I'm going to teach you like the basics that you really need to get most, like 99% of the stuff in your game to work. Now, variables is something that if you want to keep track of big numbers or a character that you interact with like 100 different times, you're going to have to keep adding numbers, and it's going to be easier. But there's a simpler one that you can have called a switch. Now, switches are extremely easy. Switches are pretty much like light switches. They only have 2 states. They are either on or they're off. And that's it. There's no other state. So for instance, our lights. We have a script that can be on or off. Basically, when it's on, it means it's nighttime. It means that the lights should be on. When the script is off, it means that it's not nighttime and the lights should be off. So you see that the lights here are on if the script is on, right? By default. But if the lights are off, the script will be off. Ours works a little different because there's something called self switches, which I'm going to explain as well. But basically, switches just work as an on and off state. There's really no other difference. It's basically just an on and off state. No, this one is an event. Let me give you an example. I am exhaust, for instance. I'm going to explain what a self switch is, but basically, if the fence is closed, you can interact with it, and she will open the fence, go through it, and then you'll notice that the fence is open in another event window. And then if you interact with this, the fence is going to close, and then you're going to see the fence closed. So basically that's it. This is just the on or off. That's what switches are. And for most of the stuff in the game that are not like complicated dialogues with characters and something that you have to progress through a lot, you are going to use switches. Now, I can use switches for everything in the game. If I want to make a switch that changes something in another map. Let's say that I use a remote control that opens the garage. Let's say that I'm in the living room. I'm here. I have a remote control here, and it opens the garage. Let's say I interact with the garage. I want to make sure that that I'm able to open something that is on a different map, like here, and I can say like I can come here and I can go on control switches. I need to pick an open switch here. Let's say garage door. Now remember, all the variables start at 0, all the switches start off, right? Let's say garage door. Now we have a switch which is number 288. That means the garage door is on. I can make this like a switch here in the conditions. Now if the garage door is on, what you will make is create a graphic for the garage door to actually be open. But now we know that we have a switch 288. That is important because here I can work on the switch, and I can change the switch for a different map. Here we go, garage door. I can say on or off, right? You can also use batches, like let's say switch between switch 100 and switch 125. Let's say that you want to turn on like 25 lights at the same time. You can also do batches, so you can turn on switches between 100 and 25. You can do like a full array instead of having to like do like 25 lines of code. You can do an array, right? It's going to show up like this: 100.025. And if you use this, you can switch switches on other maps. Now, why this one is important is there's something called self switches that goes from A through D. That means that you don't need to create a whole line of code you don't need to create a switch specifically for this. Every event in the game has 4 self switches, A through D. So here, instead of having to create a whole switch just for it and give it a name and whatnot, what can we do? We have the door closed. Let's say that the door is closed when the self switch is on, right? So if you have this, you will see the self switch is on. But if this is on, you will see the door is open. But if you interact with it, you're going to see that the switch is off, and you're going to see this. So if there's no switch, if the switch is off, the way it starts, you will see the gate closed. If you interact with it, the self switch A is going to turn on, and if the self switch A is on, you're going to see the gate open. So instead of having to create a switch that you can interact with everywhere, but it actually requires you to create a switch, you can just use the internal switches. So basically every event that you create in a game, from a lamp to someone that you interact, from a passage to wherever it is, it has 4 internal switches. So you can go on instead of like going control switches, you can control self switch. And again, you can only interact with 4 of them. You only have A, B, C, D. So basically every event in the game has 4 internal states that you don't have to create like a whole specific switch for it. You can make it like really simple. If it's a light, you can just assume that if the since it starts off, this is its off state, and then if you interact with it, right? If you interact with it, action button, it runs this, and what this does is it shows frames. So this is the frames, right? So this is the normal frame. This is the turn left frame. This is the turn right frame. This is the turn up frame. So this is the look down frame. So it goes through the frames. It looks like an animation, and then it stops, and then what you see is the open gate. So if you interact and then you realize that the self switch A turns to on, which means that now if you interact with the event, this is the conditions are met, which is the self switch on. This is how it looks, and this is what happens if you interact with it again. So this will be the animation to close the gate, which is going again through the frames, right? Like really fast, so it looks like animated. So it again in this one, it turns right, turns left, turns down, and then you cannot move through it. It's what true off means. And then the self switch A goes off, and since it goes back to off, now this is the conditions that are met. Does that make sense? So basically, this is what you're going to use for most of the game: switches and variables. Now, if you don't want to see a huge line of code here, because most pictures are animated the same way, and why does this say turn left, turn right, turn up? This might not make sense, but if you look at the characters, if you look to actual characters, it's kind of like stop motion. You will realize that usually the main one, the one that is used, is the character facing down. This one is the character facing left. This one is the character facing right, and this one is the character facing up, right? Now it makes sense. If you look here, you will realize that an event starts looking down, and when you interact with it, you'll see turn left, waits 3 frames, turns right, waits 3 frames, turns up. Now if you look at the door, this is the looking down animation. Turns left, 3 frames, turns right, 3 frames, turns up, 3 frames, it stops. So this is literally a character, but it looks like a fence. And all the sprite sheets have a look down, look left, look right, look up. For everything. Again, look up, look down, look left, look right, look up. So the way the elevator door opens, exactly the same way. So if you use this type of animation all the time, what you can do is something called common events, which is events that happen a lot of times. And there's actually a whole section for it in the database. There's a whole section called common events. And this is stuff, for instance, for instance, we have a common event called all pictures erase. And what it does is if there are screens in the game, it deletes the picture with the label 1, label 2, label 3, label 4, and usually there's no more than 9 pictures in the game. So let's go, for instance, to let's say that you want to show one of the pictures from your entire scenes, right? You come here, you come to picture and weather, you go show picture, and then you pick a picture. I don't have any right now, but let's say that I will pick a picture here, and then you can give it a number. I don't know how huge this number can be. It's probably like 999. It's pretty stupid. But let's say you add picture number 1. To you can, if you do show picture number 1 again, what it's going to do is overwrite that picture. So if you want to switch from a frame in an entire scene to another frame, basically you just do show picture 1 again. And let me give you probably example here from our test room. Let's say that okay, so this is extremely complicated because ours have 3 different types of pubic hairs and 3 different types of tans and whatever. It looks kind of like shit. It's kind of a terrible example. Let me show you something that is okay. So let's say here. So basically, we have a bunch of common events that we always use, which is dim the lights off, start playing some music, blah 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 blah. So we run this. We run a common event because we always use the same commands. Then we have something called flip picture, which is a script that we have that is able to flip pictures. This is important for the characters in dialogue. Now we have show picture one, which is when the entire scene starts. We have show picture in this case. In this case is the picture number one in the label one, and then you can give it whatever graphic name you call it. We have CG25_01, which means it was the 25 scene for our game, and this was the first panel, the first frame. So if you come here and if you still have the label number one, you can change the picture graphic. In ours will be CG25 frame number two, and it will just overwrite number one with another number one. So the picture will look like it switches, right? And then you have the lines of dialogue. After a few lines of dialogue, boom, you go to the label number one and you just switch it to the frame number three. Now, keep in mind that the higher the number, it's going to show up in front of the previous number. So let's say that you have like a base, and then you just want to add like a face change or whatever. You might have a smaller image. You call it like number two. Let's say that it's pubic hair. Let's say that this is the base, and you want to like add like different types of pubic hairs and whatever. You put it number two, and if you put a number two on it, it's going to show up in front of picture number one. It's not going to override it. It's going to show up in front of it. And if you add the number three, it's going to show up in front of number two, and it's going to show up in front of number one. So we have an event called all pictures erased, and what this event does, like I showed you before, is erase a bunch of pictures. And we usually don't use more than 9 pictures. So instead of having to write like 5 lines of code like erase picture 1, erase picture 2, erase picture 3, we have a common event that runs this whole thing. Same thing for nighttime. What happens in nighttime? The screen fades out, all pictures erased, we play a song, and then the screen fades in. You can imagine how many times the character falls asleep and wakes up the next day. If we have to add this line of code 1,000 times, it's going to start getting boring. So we're just going to call a common event. And then close all doors. This basically close all doors of the game. Because there's a problem in RPG Maker VXAs where if you, let's say that you open a door in your bedroom, whatever, and you go to another map, when you come back, the door is still going to be open. And you don't want that to happen. And you can use that for many things. For instance, this one saves the background music that is playing, and it starts playing our enticing background music. It erases a bunch of pictures, and then it tints the screen. It makes the screen darker. So basically, it's the scene where we set the mood for our entire scenes. And basically, anything that you use a bunch of times, you want to create common events for it. Another you could use for common events, other than something that you use a bunch of times, this was the main reason why people created this. It's if you're going to run a line of code like 100 times, 200 times, 300 times, 400 times in your game, you want to create a common event. You don't want to write all this code or copy it from somewhere to here. You just want to create a common event. But another reason why this is important is I specifically use it is, oh god, it's not here. Okay, some CGs, like this is an animation. You can use it to short the animation of an enticing. For instance, look at all these lines of code. You see all these lines of code, right? It's a lot. If it's in the middle of your code, it's gonna make your code it's gonna make your code hard to read and hard to edit. But if I do this now, imagine this is the common event number 407. If I go to the line of code and I just say call common event and I pick 407, instead of having the whole line of code, now my line of code is literally just that. I can literally do it. My line of code will literally just be this. So in my game, this small line of code is the equivalent of all of this. right? Oh, where was the edit that I was making? Doesn't really matter. But yeah, that one line was the equivalent to all these lines. So once you're making a code, you want your code to look like super clean, right? Um, oh, this one is not that clean. It is, but you want it to look like this. Very easy to read. And if there's something that's like very complex, you can use common event not to, make your code look really bad. Because this code right here, this code is extremely easy to read. Basically, there's a comment that helps us and the translators know what's going on. There's a common event that tints makes the screen darker, starts playing a song, yada yada, and then we have something that flips a picture. And then we have picture, dialogue, 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 picture, dialogue, 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 dialogue. Picture changes, you hear a small sound effect, dialogue, 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 picture changes again, dialogue, dialogue. This code is extremely easy to read, and you want your code to be easy to read. Because if you have a bug, if someone tells you there's a line of dialogue, there's a typo or whatever, you don't want to start going through your code and going through stuff like this to find what you need to find. So common events is not only extremely useful for some lines of code that you run a bunch of times, it's also useful for huge lines of code that you don't want messing up with your code. So most of your game is going to be comprised of something like show text, which is the characters talking. Let's say your character is called Andrea, for whoever you have Andrea. I'm having a wonderful day. And then you have Philip saying, oh yeah, also. And then your game is going to go through all these lines of dialogue every time the player presses enter. Then you can have something like show picture. Let's say picture 1, and let's imagine that picture 1 is she's showing him a tattoo, and then Philip goes, oh damn. And then let's call a common event, which is like a huge ass animation that you have. Let's call this, right? You have a huge animation here, blah blah blah. They talk a little more, blah 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 blah. And by the time they're done, you go like control variables. Let's call it Philip progress. Let's say that you have a route with Philip, and you add 1. Next time you talk with Philip, boom, we go to variable, dialogue with Philip, number 1. So next time we talk, it's going to read from this line of contents instead of reading from this line of contents. So most of your game is going to be dialogue, pictures, sound effects. Also, you can come here to background music, background sounds, music effects, and sound effects. I don't use music effects. I don't even know what the fuck this does. But most of what I use is background music, background sound, and sound effects. And then you can play sound effect, and you can pick, like, you can play it. This is someone walking. This is someone cocking a gun, for instance. And you can go okay, and then if you do this, at this point, it's going to hear someone cock a gun. Right? You're going to play the sound effect. What's the difference between background music, background sound, and sound effect? Background music is kind of like a soundtrack. It's a song that is playing, and when it ends, it's going to keep playing all over again. It's literally just a soundtrack for your game. You make a background music play, and it's you just pick a song. Let's say this. Okay, I'm gonna stop it. But if you put it here, by the time you start here, let's say that during this scene you want this background music to play. You have a background music, blah 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 blah. But let's say they're in a shower. This is pretty much what the background sound is. Well, right? It's like this. Beach social na or like city noises. You want this to play on top of the sound effects, like Japanese crickets, for instance. So you can have a background music playing, and you can have background sounds playing, and they will both keep playing uh, until they are over, and then they are going to start playing again. These ones that are looped. Shower, for instance. Subway going in the back. Right? The sound effects are very small sounds. It's like camera going off, load sounds, announcements, little door animations, someone clanking beer, buzzers. These are sound effects. So basically, you need to know the difference between each and what you're going to play. But usually, you're going to have every map is going to have a background music. Some characters are going to have their specific background music. You might want to have like for the important characters, you want to have like a background music for each important character. If you're having a shower or in a city or whatever, you want to come up with sounds that background sound. And then if something happens, if there's a bump, if there's a slap or whatever, you want to create a sound effect for that. So there's like it's mostly three types of sounds that you can have in each event. So basically, this is the basic for creating a game. You just write lines of dialogue, you create events. If you want the event to auto run, you make it auto run. So every time you walk into the room, the place, the event auto runs. If you interact with the character, you will have action button, and then it runs what you want to run, which is mostly simple. Then you can have the graphics for whatever you want the characters to look like, or a door. If you want a chest, it can look like a chest. If you want it to look like a button, you can make it look like a button. It's really, really simple. You can have like a switch that you turn left and right. Chests, like if you interact with the chest opens, right? It's the same as the door. It starts with the off, and then it goes through the animations. It turns the self switch A. This looks open. All right, it's really that simple, and it's even more simple because if you right click and you go to like quick event creation, you have both transfers, doors, treasure chests, and inns. And the inns, you have like an in character, you have a price, and then if you interact with the character, let's say that this is an inn, you interact with the character goes, it's 10 gold for the night, will you like to stay? And then you have branches like yes or no, and then it checks if you have enough money. It takes away 10 gold. The screen fades out, you hear a hint song, you sleep, and then it waits 300 frames, which is the amount of time the song lasts. Then you have recover all, which is basically important for games where you can actually take damage and the damage persists. This heals the entire party. Then you have a fade in, and the character, you slept. If you don't have enough money, you have another condition, which is you don't have enough money. And when you pick no, nothing happens. This is basically it. So this is a conditional branch. A conditional branch is something where you can have something like a choice, like let's say conditional branch. And then you can have let's say you want someone to talk, like let's say you want to check, oh, is this character already talked to Phil? Remember Philip from the conversation with Andrea? Or let's see if the garage door is on. Okay, let's see if the garage door is on. If the garage door is on, means that the garage door is open. If the garage door is on, you can have husband, baby, did you forget to close the garage door? But if the garage door is off or it's closed, it says nothing. This is the example of a conditional branch. You can ever like have you met whatever character, you can go to like variable, Philip progress. Let's say that you talk with Phil about something on the third day, right? And you can go like husband, did you meet up with Philip again, even though I told you not to? So if you met with Philip again, or if you progress this far with Philip, your husband will say something, but if you haven't, your husband will say nothing. right? And you can use variables and switches to you can check other things like self switches. You can check timers, which is something that you can program. You can check, for instance, if Ayame is in the party, or if she has like let's say you have an item and you call it like picture on the cell phone, and yeah, whatever, call it item picture of the cell phone. And if you have the picture in your inventory, let's say the picture is in your cell phone or whatever, your husband will check why who's this picture from, like whoever you've been meeting with Philip behind my back or whatever. So basically conditional branches is pretty much what happens here, but you can have it run on the actual table of contents. So uh, you can say like, let's say you need to go through an interview, and that interview grabs a switch, let's say switch 300, and sets interview switch 300 to on. And then you have another character that asks, have you been through the interview? And then you have conditional branch uh, where you write what happens in case you have been to interview. You choose like conditional branch. Let's say that the interview is number 300. Interview. If it's on, you will see whatever. If it's not on, your character can go wifey. She can go not yet. And if you go through the interview, the character will give you like the quest line and whatever. You know, that's it. So RPG Maker is basically just creating a bunch of contents and creating conditions for it to happen or not to happen. That's pretty much it. The easier way to create conditions is switches and variables. Again, switches are just on and off switches. It's like a light switch. It's either on or off. There's no other state. Variables, you can it's mostly numbers. You can attribute any number to it. You can attribute like number 645,645. And unless it's that number, for instance, it's not gonna run. It's gonna check if this is going to check if that number for that variable is this or above, and if it's not going to run this line of dialogue. It's not going to run this table of contents. So that's pretty much it. For most of the game, what you're going to use is switches, variables, and then obviously there's a bunch of other options that you have in the game. As you double click the table of contents, you will see all the options that you have. Most of them you might not ever use, like input number, show scrolling text. Most of these you will never use. Like if your game, for instance, is doesn't have fighting, you probably won't use any of this. Like right from the get-go, you will not use any of this. But if you take your time and you play close attention to like game progression, movement, whatever, you will be able to find most of what you want here. And what you're not able to find, it's easier to find tutorials online to do it. So to get your game started is really easy. But then you also wanna pick where you're going to sell your game. Most people are going to pick Patreon, Subscribe Star, Steam, whatever it is. First of all, you need to figure out how to get your game accepted there. So for most places, I'm going to tell you, depending on what you make your game about, you want to know about their TOS. Okay, let me give you a few examples. What a lot of people do on Steam is they create like a safe for work version for the game, right? And if you create a safe for work version of the game, you might want to add like a patch available on a website or whatever that people can download and apply to your game, which is literally just overwrite the files on your game, right? And that's how people use it on Steam. But Steam is very well known, for instance, for not liking characters with like high school uniforms, because there's literally only like 5 countries in the world that I remember that actually have specific outfits for university level schools, and they're all Asian. It's like Laos and Myanmar and I think Vietnam, and I can actually Google this. I'm being stupid. Countries with university outfits or university costumes or whatever. Um, Mandatory university outfits, and you will understand why Steam doesn't only. Yeah, okay. So here we go. You will find out that only 5 countries in the world provide have providing university uniforms. All of them are Asian. So you'll understand that it's Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, and I think North Korea as it as well. But you know, we don't know a lot about North Korea. So there's only 5 countries in the world that have high school uniforms. University uniforms. Sorry. What that means is if you have your characters looking like high school characters, Steam is going to assume they are high school characters. They have a high school uniform, meaning they are underage. And if you have anti-games, which Steam allows now, by the way, Steam does allow anti-games. Granted, there's a few things that they do not allow. Please check their TOS. But if you have high school uniforms, your game will be denied almost right away. And there's 2 types of denial that Steam does. Let's say yellow cards and red cards. Yellow cards, let's say, is Steam says, "Oh, we cannot accept your game. This is the reason. Feel free to like try to fix it." Right? Maybe your character looks too sexual for the main whatever. They give you a reason why they are not accepting your game, and you can make the due changes to the game and try to submit it to Steam again. That's a yellow card. Obviously, if they're like your characters has too the boobs look too big, and then you send it back and you switch it, you only switch it like a little bit, and like the boobs still look too big, and then you send it again. There's only so many times you can submit the game until it gets red carded. Like, no, okay, this is like the 10th time we're trying to like tell you you need to fix this stuff. You haven't fixed it, denied. And if your game gets denied by Steam, that is it. You can try and rebrand it, submit it from a different developer and whatnot. You might want to be able to do all that. But most of the times, if Steam says no to a game, that game is dead. It's not going to be released on Steam. Okay? And something that is notoriously known for getting your game flunked on Steam is high school uniforms. Do not submit lollies. Do not submit underage characters. Your game will get flunked, and high school uniforms are very well known for getting your game flunked on Steam. For Patreon, for instance, some stuff is illegal. That means that underage characters are illegal, incest is illegal, bestiality is illegal. So if you want to make a game where a character has sex with their mommy or with like a 10-year-old kid or whatever, you cannot release those on Patreon. Patreon does not allow those. That's why none of that is on Fleeting Garris. And if you want to do that, you have to do what most people did, which is go to Subscribestar, which is a direct competitor of Patreon. Or if your game is not none of those things, you might actually even want to do the subscription base on both Patreon and Subscribestar to offer your supporters some options. Does that make sense? Because some people just don't like Patreon, for instance. They don't want to pay Patreon taxes. They don't like the way Patreon operates for whatever reason. They don't like Patreon. They want to support you, but they don't want to use Patreon. You know, to go to Subscribestar. So it's important to know the TOS of every service that you want to sell your game on. So if you want to sell on Patreon, most likely, like you said, make sure your game is there for, you know, it doesn't breach the TOS with stuff like bestiality and incest and stuff like that. Again, people also circumvent this some ways. Basically, I don't do this because Fleeting Hours is not about incest, but there's plenty of incest games where you just download like a file, like a text file from somewhere in the internet. You patch your game, and suddenly the character that you used to call like landlady, now she's your mom. So that's basically what people do. They circumvent the legality of this. Which, it's obviously it's legal for many reasons. It's just you can't do this in our website, but whatever you do out of here, it doesn't concern us. So yeah, basically make sure where you wanna sell your game in terms of subscription based. After that, also make sure, for instance, Steam doesn't like when you, let's say that you sell something for $20 on Steam and then you're selling it for $10 somewhere else. Steam might block your game, not allow you to sell your game on their platform anymore. What you can do, however, is let's say that you sell your game for $20 on Steam. Let's say that you sell your game for $20 on DL site. You can go on DL site and put the game on and make the game go on sales. Like the price is actually $20 like on Steam, but it's on sales on DL site. The same way you can sell your game on like Faku, whatever, for $20. You can sell it for $20 on Steam, but on Steam is on sales. It's $10 only on Steam. You might want to make sales on platforms where you make most of the money, because let's say Faku charges you 50% off every sale that you make, and let's say that Steam charges you 30% off every sale that you make. It's usually a flat amount for Steam. It's 30%. You want people to buy the game on Steam because you will be making more of the money that of the sales, 20% actually in this case. So if you sell a game for $10, you're gonna make $4 more if the people buy it on Steam than if they buy it on Faku. You also want to make sure that you account for taxes. You start activity in your country. You ask them if I make what are the plateaus, like if I make this much money, how much do I have to pay? If I make this much money, how much do I have to pay? Keep tabs, keep papers of everything. Make sure of you account for every penny that you make. Pay your taxes, and once you pay your taxes, then you have profit. So also account for taxes. So usually there's going to be too many places where you're going to lose your money to every time you make a sale. Let's say you sell your game for $100. Let's say that Steam takes 3%. Let's say that the government takes 48% after that. So out of the $100 that you make, Steam instantly takes $30, so you make $70. Out of the $70, let's say that in the bulk, let's say that you sell 10,000 copies, so you make $70,000. Let's say that your government is going to take 48% of that, so you're going to end up making something like, I don't know, $35,000. That's your profit. So you're going to sell $100,000 in copies, right? You're going to be selling $100,000 in copies. Steam is going to take their cut right away, so you're not going to pay taxes off the cut that Steam takes. They are the ones that pay taxes over those. So let's say you make $100,000 on sales. Steam instantly takes $30,000 away. You're left with $70,000. Out of the $70,000, the government takes like half because you're making a lot of money, and then you end up getting like $35,000 on profit. That's your profit. Obviously, you're making a lot of money, so you're going to have a nice retirement amount of money. I don't know how your country works. In Portugal, if you're being taxed that amount of money, you're gonna make a lot of money when you're old, right? Because you're paying a lot of money in taxes, so you're gonna get that money back in returns when you're old. But usually, if you make that amount of money, make sure it's usually half. You're gonna have to pay half to your government. So if you make $100,000, you end up making like $35,000. That's the reality. Now, depending on what your government is and where your company is set and whatever, you can circumvent a lot of this. But most of the times, it's just a massive headache, and you don't want to do it. You want to be. This is like paying finances and paying taxes and whatever. It's the type of thing that you want to make sure that you are up to par, and you don't want to like circumvent, because if it goes wrong, it's gonna go wrong really, really bad. This is actually, the law you're talking about. So yeah, make sure you make sure you take this part of the job seriously. So if you make $100,000, don't start spending money like crazy. Make sure that you remember that you have to pay taxes. And then obviously you can you might not have to pay like $35,000. Let's say that you have to buy computers. You can use those as like I don't know what you guys call it, but you guys call it like taxable purchases or taxable purchases, where you can, for instance, for your work, something like if you buy computers, if you buy peripherals, if you buy all the electricity that you buy, you can put the electricity bill on your taxes. You can put the internet on your taxes. Any program that you pay on a subscription base, like Photoshop, whatever, you need those to work. So those are you can use those in your taxes, and you're gonna pay that less money in taxes, because you're spending that money in stuff that you need for your job. So if you pay something like RPG Maker, you can present the receipt for that. Photoshop monthly you can pay. If you have to drive from home to office, whatever, you have to pay. You can grab the gas and you can present it. So there's a lot of ways to lower your taxes, and keep in mind that people that work with computers and need computers for a living, there's a lot of stuff that you can deduct from. You can deduct your internet bill. You can deduct your electricity bill almost entirely. You can deduct your gas. You can deduct your meals. If you go to the store and you buy lunch, if you buy whatever, you can give them the receipt for your meals, and there's a lot of money that you can get back from the taxes if you just present the receipts for all the stuff that that you really need to spend. Like if you cannot work without the internet, you can show them the receipt for the internet, and they are going to lower your taxes, and usually you get a lot of money back from that. And then depending on the country, depending on your system works, if you do charity, that might be you might be able to present that as an expense, as a work expense. And there's basically a lot of people that do a lot of charity, wink wink, and keep most of them money. I can tell you that most rich people in the United States do not pay taxes, and they do it legally, and they just found loopholes. I know that the United States, which is the country that you leave, have a bunch of loopholes that you can get around, and a lot of people have hinted that you can find loopholes. There's man, I saw Trump talking about it, Warren Buffett talking about it. Actually, Elon Musk is one of the people that pays the most taxes in the United States. He doesn't try to circumvent taxes. Probably because he makes so much fucking money that he does not care. And mostly because I think he cares a lot about his public image, so he doesn't want to get away with not paying taxes. While Trump actually sounds like the type of person that is like, he's a capitalist, so he's like, just be smart about your money and don't give the government money that you don't have to give. So everybody's going to have their opinion on this, and it's up to you to inform yourself in how can you either pay all of the money that you make legally, or how can you circumvent paying that much money. So check the laws of your country, check how you can get away or not. It's up to you. That's important. So definitely find out how much do places charge, and keep in mind that you are not forced to only sell in one place. You can sell on 50 places. You can sell on Faku and shit. Well, what are some of the other ones? You can sell it on Steam. You can sell it on Jest. You can sell it on Mega Gamer, Nutaku, DL site. You can sell it off all of them. Just make sure that you figure out what are the rules of those websites before selling there, because I know that Steam doesn't find it funny if you sell your website or if you sell your game on like Faku for $10 and you sell it on Steam for 20. They do not take kindly for that, so be careful, because they might ban you. They might ban your game from their platform if you do that. So that's pretty much it. I'm giving you like what are the basics to start your game on. Something else that I can tell you that you're probably not gonna ask, because I like to save some time for you to ask me questions, whatever questions that you have, and then If you have any questions, I'll answer to you. But for instance, all the stuff that you do, all the back work that you do in the game, try to keep it organized. Something that Isaac and I, which is my second in command in Evan Studios, stress a lot is that we did not leave a lot of space to organize our switches. Like everything feels cluttered, and sometimes when we have to look for a switch, some of them are like sequential and it's easy to find where they are, but some of them, like I Am Being a Virgin, is like number 83 for whatever reason. This should be on something that is like a lot easier to spot. Like we see from route 34 from number 30 341 on, we have active routes, and there we have this like very well organized. What are the active routes? And then on the used often, which is like we could put the I Am a Virgin check here. We could have it here, and then you have like a section for the ones that you have like used often. Make sure, sorry, Isaac is sending me work stuff for our game. Let me just silence my cell phone. Make sure that you leave a lot of room. Isaac was like, bro, there's no way we're going to use more than 500 switches. Kill that noise. If you want to make sure, just come here to the max, write 9,000. It doesn't fucking matter. Make sure that your switches are organized. Like nightclub switches. You have a route that's in a nightclub. Make it here. Write your switches. Write your switches on an organized way. Don't worry about making too many switches or having like empty slots. Just make sure that whenever you have to access your switches, whenever you have to access your variables, whenever you have to access your common events, make sure you leave a lot of room to it. And even better, what you can do is you're going to see my desktop for a little bit, maybe. I hope there's nothing illegal in here, like YouTube illegal. Let's say that you have something like not here. God damn it, I have so much fucking stuff for my game. Okay, whatever. Let's say this. Keep track of all your stuff, like this. Make sure you keep track of, like, for instance, all your sound effects, all the songs that are used in the game, their name and what do you use it for. Keep tabs of all of it. I don't know if I hope this is legal. If not, I'll have to close it. Okay, yeah. Keep track of all of this. We have one for the switches, where we have like switch 1, what it is, what does it do, where does it show up, blah blah blah. Switch 2, whether it happens, blah 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 blah. Here we have for the enticings, we have the name of the enticing. What are the requirements? It's written wrong, but this was Isaac. It has the requirements. It has the map where it happens. That's literally the name of the map in the game. It has which event it is, the event in the tab, and what stats happen. Like, for instance, if you see this enticing, you see morality 3. So again, it's really important. And then we have for the Archer route, the Kiki Kittens, the office route, the nurse route, blah blah blah. So, like I said in the beginning of our tutorial, it's really important that you keep tab of everything, that you track everything. Track the switches, track the variables, the audio. Make sure that if you have to access something in your game at any given point, you can easily find it. If there's a bug and someone says, oh, in the second day when you talk to this character there's a bug, you need to be able to go there. Oh, okay, it's in what map? The train station. Okay, when you talk with what character? The little girl. There's a bug here, and then you look to go to the table of contents and you find out where it is. If someone gives you an error, oh, the switch whatever failed or whatever, you want to be able to like know what every switch does, because you are not able to comment here. You are not able to comment on your switch, but you don't even have to. You don't even have to have an Excel sheet for it. Let's say, just giving you an example. Let's say that you have a test area like I do. This is where I test all my shit. And I, for instance, have stuff that I use a lot. I have a cheat sheet, kind of like here. because oh okay, I can copy this from here to whatever I need it, right? Same here. There's a bunch of stuff that is a cheat sheet for me with a lot of comments and whatever. There's another cheat sheet here. What you can do is create an event, call the event switches, and then you can comment like, let's say switch 1, let's say 001. You can comment the name of the switch. You can call it MC Virginity, or yeah, MC Virginity. And you can write the description for it, right? Let's say description. If on, it means that, wait, in this case, since it starts off, yeah, you might want to switch it in the beginning game. So let's say if on, it means that the main character is still a virgin. If off, it means that the main character has engaged in vaginal sexual intercourse. And then you can do the same for like switch number 2. Switch number 2, you call the switch, let's say, as a job. Description. If on, it means that the main character is employed. So you can keep like a tab and you never erase this ever in your life. And if for whatever reason, right, you go to, let's say the switches, you want to see the conditions, and then you go to like, wait, number 11 Jack West number 2, what the fuck is this? Because again, you cannot write a comment here. You cannot write a comment here. So you have to go like, oh dude, what the fuck? What? Wait, why did I write this here? Why? What the fuck is number 11 Jack West number 2? You come here, you will see, you search for 11 Jack West number 2. Oh right, that's what it does. That's why I put that there. So I cannot stress enough that a lot of the work that is done in the game is the stuff that people will never see. Only you. All the notes that you write, all the side programs that you keep track of, the Excel sheets, the Word, the Microsoft Word documents, the Notepad++, which what I personally recommend to do quick edits and do quick notes that you want to add in your game, blah blah blah. Do a lot of back work. Make sure that all your stuff is easy access, easy edit. Else, it's if you start writing spaghetti code and whatnot, you're in for a bad time. You're in for a bad time. Every time you have a bug, you're gonna spend like, oh my god, where did I write that? Why is this bug happening? You want to make your code easy to read. You want to make everything very well commented on. I promise you this. You want to do this back office work from the get-go. Comment everything. Comment everything on your code. There's a lot of stuff that people will not see in your game. People will only see the dialogue. People will only see the images. What happens in the back of the game, there's many hours of work that people will never get to see. Like all the stuff that you test, stuff that you actually write, make, and never makes it into the game. Just keep tabs of everything. Like here I have the locations of my game of my game and where the characters are from. Keep tabs of everything. How old are they? Did they add sex? Yes. Okay. Keep a place in your game where you have all that. Okay, this character had sex with this character. This character had sex with this and this character. This character had sex with this and this character. This character has met character A, character B, character C. Make sure that all the information on your game is safely stored somewhere. So one day if you think, hey wait, did this character meet this character? Oh god, I don't even know like if in this dialogue if they should know each other, if they should be acquainted to each other. So if you don't want to make like really poor mistakes in your game where wait, these characters never met, why are they talking like they met before? Make sure, again, I cannot stress this enough, proper documentation about everything that happens in your game is invaluable. And I wish I knew this from the get-go because yeah, it's really hard. Hey, what's up, Ashik? Hey, Amir. I didn't even realize you guys were in the chat. Welcome to the chat. I'm trying to give some developing lessons here, one on one with our guest for today, Generic, which has supported us on the $50 tier on the Patreon, and I'm trying to give him the a big push for him to start working on his own game. Obviously, this is just a start, and if you want to ask me questions later on, do feel free, Generic, to ask whatever questions that you want. Um, but again, I'm giving you the initial lights that you need, and once you have those, finding tutorials online for the stuff that you need online is probably going to be really easy. Um, Another thing that I wish I knew from the get go, if you start going, oh, I wish I'm gonna change this later. Oh, I need to release this patch. Oh man, I had this great idea. Whatever, I'm gonna release this later. Oh, I had this great idea. Oh man, I need to change that in the game. Whatever, I'll change it later. I don't know how you are, but I know how I am, and I know how most of the the developers that I know are, and almost to no exception, and I'm at fault of this as well. People will not go back to change. Oh right, I need to go change it. People that say, for how many patches the guys from Lily of the Valley keep saying, "Oh right, we need to go back and add the CG room." They haven't added a functional CG room or an updated CG room in over a year. All the scenes that we look at and we're like, I really don't like this scene a lot. I will come back at it later. Later never comes, but because once you're working on a game, you're always working on a game. And putting out new patches is more important than going back and improve on previous patches. People don't care about that most of the times. People want to see new scenes, not improved old scenes. Now, in Evan Studios, we did go back and we did redraw and we did rewrite a lot of scenes. But most people will not do that. And most of the time, it's not because they're lazy. You will not find time to do that because once you're making progress, you always try to make more progress and you won't go back and rectify stuff that you didn't get right the first time around. So make sure you don't spend a lot of time doing, oh, I will come back to these later scenes. If you do that, you will quickly find out that later never arrives and you never have extra time to go back and switch stuff. So, from the basics, make all the research of where you're going to settle the game, figure out what type of game you want to make, write the whole story, write the whole scenes, figure out your team, assess all the work that needs to be done from mapping if you want to do it, from where you're going to get your soundtrack, or if you want to use the RPG Maker basic one, where you're going to get your drawings from, your anti from. And once you have all that together, once you have all the teams, all the assets, all the maps, all the stuff, once you have all the groundwork, then start working on your game. And once you start working on your game, keep tabs of everything, keep the most amount of documentation that you can, and make sure your game looks clean from the get-go. Your lines of dialogue, your lines of code, whatever it is, make sure it looks clean from the get-go. Else you won't have to go back from it in the future. It's going to look like a fucking mess. Now, Generic, if you have any questions that you want to ask me or have any doubt that you did working on RPG Maker, I assume that you've been working on RPG Maker MV or MZ. I don't know if you're working for Unite because it's going to be it's no longer going to be JavaScript. It's going to be Unity, which is what a lot of people use for visual novels nowadays. I think it might be Unreal. Unreal is not very common. Unreal is actually hard to work on. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Unity and Ren'Py, whatever you want to call it. I think Unity and Ren'Py are the two most used systems for visual novels. All the games that you see on that with like the S3D art and all the stuff that you see, most of it is actually Ren'Py or or Unity. So you might even not want to use RPG Maker. You might want to use one of those, or you might want to wait for RPG Maker Unite, which is compatible with Unity. So it really depends on you, on which platform do you want to use. Okay. By the way, the vlog for this whole stream is going to always be available on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back to it and check it whenever you want. Um, so yeah, you can even make tabs on like the timers, like stuff. Oh right. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions you want now. If you want to do it offline, we can do it offline. Um, if you want me to keep recording for for it to be safe, so you can check later on. And again, if you want to check me the questions, if you want to ask any other questions at any other given time, again, I always encourage people to talk with me on Discord or whatever other social media I'm around. So I'll always try to be helpful. Emmanuel said, "I listen to your podcast while coding. Most of your advice can be is usable even during web programming." Yeah, having a clean code, not doing spaghetti code, being very detail oriented, it's definitely helpful in all those situations. Working on a game is not that different. You definitely want to have like a clean workplace in more ways than one. Uh, you want to have your folders clean. You want to have everything easily accessible. Like my desktop seems like a mess, but things are separated for a reason. The most important things. This is just style sets that I'm working for Journey Abroad. This is the trailer that I'm working for the Shota patch. This is some changes that I want to make in the future. Uh, Basically, there's a lot of detail. If you go to work, I have all the tabs. Like I know where everything is. Especially if I go to this Evan Studios folder, I know where all the stuff is. I know where all the stuff is. Like being extremely organized will never hurt you when working on this line of work. Regardless if it's web programming or game making or whatever, uh, organization is key. Doing your back work, being organized is extremely important. Keep track of everything. Be extremely organized. Save all your songs to one folder. Catalog everything neatly. Write comments on everything. It's really important in this line of work, especially when you will be working with thousands and thousands of files, regardless if it's images, regardless if it's music, regardless if it's just documentation of stuff that you do in your game. It's really important that you are very detail oriented and you keep everything organized and very well commented. It's really, really, really important. I seriously cannot stress this enough. It's important that you can access all your information easily, fast, and you have everything like accessible as soon as you want it. Yeah, generic. You don't have to ask questions now. You can actually try and play around with RPG Maker, and then if you have questions at a later date, do feel free to do it. But I feel like as like an orientation to how to start developing, this was a good first lesson. Anything else that you want, you might have like very specific questions, and you can ask me whenever you want. Um, but I feel like as a wake up call, and knowing how Herculean some of the decks are going to be, and how are you going to go about finding the necessary stuff to work on your game. I feel like this was a really good first lesson. Um, Obviously, you need to get your programs, get your people, and write the whole backstory for the game. Um, Honestly, I wish someone told me most of this stuff when I was starting. And I know that I made it feel like a crash course, but the stuff that I taught you initially, I feel like it's something that really needs to be taught, especially if this is your first time working in something of this genre, because I actually had work on games and edited other people's games before I started working um, on my own game. Uh, I feel like the first lights that you need to start working on a game, I said most of it during the this 2 hour tutorial. Um, as for other questions that you're gonna get, you're probably gonna get them as you are already working on the game. So like I said, do feel free that whenever you have a question, show up on my Discord. It's probably where I'm gonna be able to reply the fastest, and I will answer whatever question you have for me there. But yeah, I wish you a lot of good luck. Um, but I feel like you have a lot of decision making ahead of you, because you're gonna have to figure out how to work with DAS if you're gonna make it on your own. You're probably gonna have to like find someone to commission if you want to have commissioned art. You're gonna have to get all your programs, and then you're gonna have to look for all the assets. That means songs. That means style sets if you're not looking to make your own. If you have ideas for the scripts, because you will decide how your game is gonna play out. If you want to have scripts that's change the lights. If you want to have scripts that that reflect, that have your player reflection in the game. All the scripts, all of this you're gonna have to do like a lot of shopping. And I don't mean shopping like spending money. I mean like window shopping. Like there's a lot of decision that has to be made before you even go into making a game. And it's funny because most of the game making stuff that that goes into making a game, um 90% of it is stuff that people will never see. It's just doing window shopping in the back. It's working on stuff that you will then change and people will not ever get to see it. Uh, for instance, I make a map. The final map that people get, the map that probably went like through like 4 versions. I made a lot of facets. I didn't like the way it looked. I completely scrapped it, made a new one. So, making a lot of groundwork before you go into actually making your game, and writing a lot of stuff in the back. Like people will never see this. People will, okay, they will because now I see, but people, and this is I can't even over understate like how much stuff I already wrote for the game and then deleted. Like people don't will never see all this work. This is work that people will never see, right? It's not only that we have the biggest game in terms of lines of dialogue. It's not that we have the biggest names in terms of anti-scenes. It's not that we have the biggest game in every single metric. People also have no idea on the amount of work we have behind the scenes. I released I released on the preview section of our Discord a few days ago a scene that never made it into the game, and by the time you guys get a scene, we already made dozens of edits to the scene. I don't like the way the boobs look. I don't like the way the eyes look. I don't like the way the eyebrows look. I don't like the way the scene looks at all. You have to redraw the most of it. There will be a lot of work that people will never get to see once you release your game, done in the back. But I promise you that doing a lot of documentation and a lot of organization and in detail oriented is the base you need to have to make a game. If you start feeling lost and where did I put that and whatever, just keep tabs of everything. Write everything down. Get an agenda. Write what you're planning to do, by which day, how you want to write the scenes. Just make sure you write everything down. It's really important. Imri said, while working for your work, are you taking hints from other people's work or trying 100% unique design? When I'm writing the game for the first time, I'm doing 100% original. And then it really depends how open-minded and how receptive you are to what your fans say, right? On Evan Studios, there's a bunch of we really like to engage with our community, right? And there's a bunch of scenes that are in the game that were literally just suggested by a lot of fans. There are some scenes where we were like deciding between two different scenes, or for instance, let me give you a quick example. The whole Clark route was rewritten to be like I am a domination scene or whatever, um, because people didn't like the Clark route before. So if you grab a Clark route version from like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, it's completely different. It didn't look like this at all. The feedback that we got from our fans, people telling us that they didn't like Clark, or they weren't liking Clark the way it was or whatever, was what make it completely made us rewrite the Clark route. So it's important that you give the people what they want, even if you have an idea for a game, even if you feel like your idea is really good. You gotta stay humble. You gotta stay down to earth, and you remember who's paying to keep your lights on, right? So if you're making a game for the fans, sometimes you can have moments where you feel like, no, this is my game, I know better. But it doesn't hurt to be humble and take suggestions most of the time. And I can say that a lot of the scenes that I have in the game, they were made better, or they only exist because I listen to our community. And I'm sure that anyone that has been following us for a long time knows how important it is for us to be transparent and to engage with our community. Um, but it's one of those things that it's easier for people that has been around to notice than than you saying yourself, oh no, we've always been this and we've always been that. I feel like our fans are the first ones to say that we actually engage with the fans, and we listen to them, and we made changes because of them. All our polls, I keep saying this, the results of this poll are important, and they are. Most of the times they have direct consequences on what comes out on our games. So, but a lot of times you also just can't get away with everything you want, and you need to listen to your community. So I definitely started with a 100% unique design. I had an idea for a game, I wanted to make it, and I made it. The whole idea for the LNC Chronicles universe, which is like 5 games happening at the same time, and you see like the characters like cameo and crossover from one game to another. That whole idea for the game was original. I feel like our game has a very unique design, and the scenes have a very unique design. But then, like I said, that was before I even started writing the game. So when I got to actually write the game and make the game, then you start getting feedback, because now you're starting to present like your proof of concept. You start putting the game out there. People start supporting you, and they start asking, does this character will ever show up again? Will you ever make more scenes for Jack? Does she ever does anal with Jack and whatever? And then once a lot of people start suggesting something, you see like, oh, okay, a lot of people want to see this. So once a lot of people want to see that, it might be in your best interest to give the people what they want. Ashik asked me, did you guys ever find the solution for finding out how to fit Diami's dialogue with how far you are into the game? I hope that question made sense. Yes, that question made sense. We made a whole podcast about it. I feel like it was like 2 or 3 podcasts ago. No, we didn't. It's just a lot of people criticize us in the sense that, oh, we would have done it differently. And then when we ask people, okay, how would you do it? People never come up with a solution. So, like I said, the best way, I don't remember what I said, but I feel like the best way was to like write 5 different dialogues or whatever for each time, each part of the game you were. But in a game as big as ours, it's just not doable. Not with the team we have. We have a very small team. Very important, generic. Be very realistic. Like, it's okay to be ambitious, but you need to figure out like some stuff is just not doable. It's not doable. The amount of time and the amount of work you need to put into something versus what you get from it. It's very important that once you start making your game, it's very important to be realistic to what you can do, because Isaac is the one that programs most of the stuff in our game. Like all this stuff, it's not a program, but like all of this, like the code of the game. It's not the code because this is not the scripts, but he's the one that makes the events. Isaac is our eventer. That's what he does. It makes events, right? It does all the events, and then I write all the dialogues and whatever. But all the events, like I tell them, I need a character to go from here to here, opens the door, goes into here, looks right, talks with this character. I tell him what I want to happen, and then Isaac takes. Obviously, we take notes. I write whatever I want to him, and then he does that. Okay. But I know how to do that myself. Isaac is just saving me time because again, I'm doing the job of like 20 different people for Evan Studios. So what Isaac is doing is saving me time, so he does that while I can focus on doing other stuff. I can write entire scenes while he's doing all this eventing. When I tell him what to do, it's really important they already know that it can be done and how it is done. So I already tell him, you go here, you create a transfer, you wait 3 seconds, you go here, you turn up, you open the door, you hear a ring, you walk into here. Like, not only I'm explaining what I want to happen, but I'm also explaining mechanically what needs to happen. So you might have, so generic, the thing is, you might have an idea, but every idea you have for your game needs to come with the idea of how to mechanically implement it in the game. Because having an idea and then having no fucking clue how to do that in RPG Maker or on Unity or whatever platform you decide, Rampy, whatever. If you have an idea, regardless of how great it is, if you cannot implement it, it's as good as not having it. I mean, you can go out, you can talk to scripters, you can talk to whoever you want, and maybe someone might give you a light or whatever. But some stuff is not just hard to do. There are stuff that is like colossal effort, incredibly time consuming. And sometimes, regardless of how good an idea is, it might not be realistic to implement it in your game. So you have to decide if it's worth the effort or not. For instance, at some point, I actually wanted Ayame to make a noise every time she walked. Not only she will make a noise, she will make a different noise depending on what she was wearing as footwear. And the different type of ground she was walking on. So if she had like, let's say, high heels, you will hear like cluck, 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 cluck on like wood. And you will hear like a more rigid tunk, tunk, tunk. If she was walking on like marble. If she was walking on grass, you will hear you will hear like different noises depending on the surface that she was walking on. And then you will have like a different noise if she didn't have any shoes. At some point, I also had an idea of having Ayame have or look reflected on every surface that was reflectable, whatever. All those things look really nice, but the amount of work that those things will entail, not to mention they might be not compatible with other things that you have in the game, it just doesn't play well. For instance, when I wanted to do the reflection surfaces, I actually added into a game. Some people actually, play the version of the game where you could see Ayame's look reflected on the water in the park, the glass windows of the casino, whatever. But it was incompatible with our light script, and so we had to decide between having our light script or the reflective surfaces. The problem is we had already coded over like 1,000 lights in our game, so we could either look for a different light switch, a different light script to keep the reflective surfaces, or we could save hours of work from removing all the lights, the light switches that we had, which was thousands, find a new light script, make it work compatible with our game, and then create another thousands of light switches with the new script. That was that will be so many hours of work, just a realistic amount of work. And at the end of the month, or if after 2 months or 3 months or whatever, like, people want speed, people want pace, people want their porn, and they want it now. People will not take it lightly if you take 1 month out just to fix the light switch. So you need to be realistic about your objectives, and you need to be realistic about your how ambitious you want your game to be. Because if you're a one man show, you need to be realistic how much amount of time you are willing to put into your game, and not only how much time you are willing to put into your game, how much time you are capable of putting into your game. Because creative work is not the same as lifting weights. You know, lifting weights, your boss tells you, grab this shovel, start shoveling over there. I want you to make a hole. How big? Doesn't matter. Make a hole. You grab the shovel, you start making a hole. Do you have energy to make a hole? You keep making the hole. You cannot clap and tell your brain, "Hey man, I need an idea now." That's not how it works. You only have so many creative juices, right? And you will realize that just like making a book, sometimes you sit down to write and write 10 pages, and sometimes you sit down and you write 10 lines. It's really hard to predict creativity. And you will understand that creative work is not the same as doing muscular tasks, so to speak. So it's yeah, exactly, progressive overload. So it's important to be reasonable about your goals, and it's important to be reasonable about what you're going to put out. Like, I wish I could work at the same pace that I could work on my 20s. I can't. I'm terribly sorry. Hopefully, the quality of my work is better to the point where it makes up for not putting out as many work hours as I could. Because many of my work hours are like making decisions, looking at the screen, and not actually, writing. But back then, especially when it came to like writing in Tysons, it will be, woo, let's go. And I will be able to write in Tysons for days at end. So it's really important to realize how creative you can be. Because sometimes it's not even like, yeah, I'm willing to work. Creative work is not always about being willing, and it's not about discipline. It's not as easy as going to the gym. You don't feel like going to the gym, you go to the gym anyway. Why? Because you want to be consistent about that in your life. Because you are disciplined. You get up always at the same time. You go to bed always at the same time. You have your meals always at the same time. You only eat as many calories as you plan, because you're disciplined. You go to the gym, you're disciplined. But regardless of how disciplined you are, sometimes it's not easy to spark creative juices. Sometimes you're just not feeling creative. So you gotta count for that. You are not always able to work as many hours as you want. So it's important that you are realistic about your goals. That's about it. Anyway, we've been at this for like 2.5 hours. Obviously, some people showed up. It was a surprise for them. This is different from many of the podcasts that we've made. Also, for people that create or ever considered creating an RPG Maker game, this probably is helpful to them as well. So everybody appreciate Generic for actually paying for the lessons that everyone is getting. I hope I helped you, and I hope I helped everyone that that is watching and actually wants to get into making games eventually. And maybe it gives some people an idea of how much work there is has to be put into actually making a game. And not all of it is about what you see and what you get. A lot of work is done behind the scenes, and people don't account for it, especially in like big ambitious projects. People just assume that oh, you just have to sit down and write scenes and get your computer like rendering the entire scenes, and you just put everything together and it's so easy. It's not. Most people that talk trash never try to work in a game ever in their life. They just like to crack the whip and yell at patron developers to keep to release their shit faster. And it's very common. It is what happened in ULMF, and a lot of people tell me that it's what happens in F95. I know that the threat for Felinigaris is a whole mess. Like I hear a lot of reports of what happens there, but that's what's gonna happen in free forums always. People that have no fucking clue what they're talking about things they have no fucking clue about. That's it. So yeah, I honestly hope that you enjoyed the lessons. And again, if you want, if you have any questions for me at a later date, feel free to talk to me on Discord. All right. Everyone else, take care. I will see you guys next week in the podcast. Isaac will hopefully be back and more healthy. Another thing happened. Isaac as a whole fucking problem in his throat. I don't know if it's a fungus or whatever it is, but basically they tried to cure it with antibiotics, didn't work. They tried to cure it with penicillin, didn't fucking work. So this guy currently has something in his throat that penicillin didn't fucking get rid of. So now he's making a lot of exams, and he's trying to figure out. The doctors are trying to figure out what it is so they can heal him. So yay, Evan Studios. Everything is just coming up Evan Studios lately. You know, these. I don't even know what the fuck. I don't even know, dude. What the fuck? But it is what it is. I'll see you guys very soon. Much love, guys. Stay healthy. That's what's most important. Take care.